Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Football House on House Enterprise. Sam Basil coming back to you live with a full crew. I'm joined alongside Will Tondo, Jake Zimmer, and Cole Hughes. And guys, Week 8 was insane. I mean, this has been a wild season for college football. Upsets all around, especially last week. Most notably, our number one team, Texas, falling to Georgia, 30-15. Alabama taking another loss to Tennessee. And, just it's one of those seasons where Oregon's the number one right now. They're the unanimous number one in our top 25 poll, but it really does not feel like they are truly the number one team in the country. They're just not number one.
A product of circumstance, possibly?
Yeah,
is that the term we're using here?
And even then, they've still got that shaky win against Boise State. So it's how good is everybody really compared to the rest of the pack? It's really tough.
I did say Oregon was going to win the national championship at the beginning of the year. So
you did.
It's looking pretty good.
And again, Oregon's a great team, I think. But like Jake said, definitely the circumstances. And they're also 21-point favorites against Illinois. I think that's a little high. We'll get into picks, but
we'll save that. I got some commentary around that.
Well, I would love to compare it to, kind of the vibe of this show in 2022, right? I felt like every week we were talking about the Football House Top 25, and every week in that season we were like, all right, let's see, is it going to be Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan for the top 4 again this week, or is it going to be Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State for the top 4 this week? So, they were always moving around amongst each other, but they never really found no other schools really found that much time to kind of close in the gap and make their way into the top to the top 4. And now in a 12-team playoff, I mean, this is the perfect pitch really for a 12-team playoff is this season where not only is our number one kind of on shaky ground here, but I mean every single week we've got a new team moving in and out of the top 4.
I think just real quick, the amount of teams right now that could win the national championship are crazy. There's so many teams that are going to be contenders, and the fact that we get 12 in the playoff this year, every playoff game is going to be so electric and fun to watch. So just really looking forward to that. And shout out to Indiana. We're talking about some Big Ten teams right now. Who would have thought? They're 7-0. Are they a football school?
Yeah. They're sure not a basketball school. I might get some heat for that one. But
yeah, that'll be yeah. Well, I mean, especially Cole talking about the 12-team playoff. I mean, not only is it going to be electric, it's going to be so close, but this first round, we're going to have on-campus games. I mean, think about how just with how close this playoff field is now, how much that is going to kind of play into things and just make this playoff even more electric.
Yeah, and I think the system, the way it's set up now, is the best team's going to be the champion, right? Because in years prior, when you had 4 teams, right, if you're the number one team, like an Alabama or a Georgia or Michigan, right, in the last couple of years, that is so dominating, you're going to play in that semifinal game, probably blow out whoever you're playing, or even in the national championship based on how the matchups go, right? So you really just have to win 2 games, and that doesn't really show, what you're capable of or test you that much. I think now that even the teams that get those first week buys and don't have to play at their home campuses and are playing at neutral sites, I mean, you still have to win 3 games, right? And that's going to be very difficult with the top 12 teams that are going to end up in the playoffs. So I think, whoever wins this year is definitely going to be worthy of it. And it's going to be fun to see how it all works out.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it. Starting off with our latest top 25. Oops. Figure out a way to get you guys on there without cutting everybody off. There we go. So, top 4, like we said, a lot of movement here. Texas out of the number 1 spot. Alabama falling all the way down to 12. And then Georgia moving up to 2. Oregon moving up to number 1. And Penn State chilling, vibing at the 3 spot. 2 new teams. Navy has finally made the cut. I know they've been kind of working their way up there for several weeks now. And, guys, who'd have thought Vanderbilt, both in the AP and in our top 25, they are the 25th ranked team in the country. If there's anything that kind of encapsulates how crazy this college football season is, I think Vanderbilt being ranked has to be one of them, right?
Oh, without a doubt. I don't know if you guys saw they played when we haven't had a show since they pulled off that big upset win at home against Alabama, but they played in the stadium, I guess, the clip of Nick Saban going, "There's no easier place to win an SEC game than Vanderbilt." And
no, but they had
a turnaround.
They had a good win against Kentucky the week after that too.
I mean, look, they got Texas this weekend too. If they were to beat Texas, I mean, then you're really talking about Vandy, right? And I mean, no one's expecting that to happen, of course. But if they pull that off, wow, Bama.
Yeah, when was the last time that Vanderbilt was even ranked? We can probably find that somewhere. But that's I feel like they've just been the little brother of football of the SEC for so many years. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they've really only been kind of, I don't want to say relevant, but I mean, I feel like they've only really been, prominent athletically in the SEC when it comes to baseball. I mean, at least for most of my sports watching life. And then Jake, to kind of check that, the last time they were ranked, they were 24th, week 17 in the final AP poll of the 2013 season.
Yeah,
so it's been 11 years since we've seen Vanderbilt in the top 25.
And there's another stat on that they haven't been ranked during the regular season since 5 years before that. Because it was at the end of the season, 2008 is when you have to go back. That's 16 years for this Vanderbilt football program to even sniff the rankings. It's unbelievable. So, it'd be wild if they ripped off a win here. And then you have to start talking about Texas, who I feel like has been the crown jewel of the show, right? We unanimously concluded 2 weeks in, hey, this could be the best team in the nation. I feel like a lot's changed since then. So that's a pretty telling game to see how Texas responds here.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where it's what could Texas really have done to beat Georgia, right? I mean, the thing we've been talking about Texas, I feel like one of the big reasons why we felt like we're kind of ready to shut the book on the season and kind of give it to Texas up until the Georgia game was the fact that even if there's a game where Quinn Ewers is kind of falling behind and struggling, you could just hand the ball off to Manning and he's just as effective. And it looked like that's exactly what they were doing against Georgia. And then Manning comes in and he's still not a proper answer for Georgia's defense. So, I mean, to kind of foil Texas's ultimate trump card there, it's incredibly remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. You look at Texas, right? You can't count them out, right? Because it's Georgia, right? So depending on how they bounce back, they may still be, like you said, our crown jewel, right? We can't make a determination on that yet but at the same time, look at Clemson what do we have them at, 9? Clemson's only losses to Georgia as well, right? So what differentiates Texas, Clemson at this point? And then Georgia lost to Alabama, right? And it's just craziness. Like we've said, this season has been wild. There's been kind of just twists and turns everywhere. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens and how it all plays out in the SEC. Who are the 2 teams at the end that are playing for that conference championship, and who's going to position themselves the best come playoff time.
But you said off air, Cole, that the ACC is no joke this year. The ACC has some wagons, so it's everyone was saying the SEC is the powerhouse. I mean,
Big Ten too, right?
Big Ten.
Big Ten has plenty of teams, and even in the Big 12, I mean, everyone's talking about Kansas State, but you got BYU there too. That's been surprising. Iowa State, right? There's a lot of good teams across these conferences. So I think it's great for college football that it's not just the SEC. We're always talking about how the SEC is the most dominant, but I think due to conference realignment in some other areas that these other conferences are showing that they can hang as well.
And then one more thing I'd like to note about our top 25 this week: reigning national champs Michigan have finally fallen out after that loss to Illinois, who now sit at 20th in our poll. Let's check out my latest college football playoff fields pretty similar to what we're seeing in the top 25. The only big difference, I think, where I disagreed with you guys voting this week was I had Clemson higher than Miami. So in this situation, they have my 3 seed out of the ACC. Oregon, Georgia, Iowa State are the 1, 2, and 4 seeds respectively. Alabama falling out of the playoff field at the moment. Ole Miss falling out of the playoff field. In is Notre Dame and Boise State holding on to that group of 5 spot. But I think this week it is going to be as contentious as ever because we've got 4 really solid teams going up this week. Boise State and UNLV are the 2 teams that I have in the Mountain West that I think have the best chance of making it as the group of 5 spot. And I think after this week, one of these teams is going to be out of the bubble because Boise State and UNLV go head-to-head against each other this Saturday. Up next, I've got Army. They're a nice 7-0, sitting atop the American Athletic Conference, right next to their longtime rival, Navy, also sitting at 7-0 in the American Athletic. Navy's got a tough matchup. We're going to talk about that later this episode. But I want to focus on the Boise State and UNLV matchup here. UNLV, they were in the bubble earlier this season, I would say about 3-4 weeks ago, but that all changed with the the announcement that Matthew Sluka would be leaving the program after disputes about money that he was promised with NIL opportunities coming to UNLV from Holy Cross, and we thought they were going to take a dip, but they really haven't. They've dropped 1 game and they've got 2 wins against Power 5 programs. They beat Fresno State pretty handily. They beat Oregon State. I'm sorry, they've got 3 wins against Power 5 if you're still counting Oregon State right now at the Pac-12. But what can we expect in this game between Boise State and UNLV?
I think it's going to be an absolute showdown. I mean, you got 2 great offenses. Like you said, UNLV's had some distractions this year. They've handled that well. Their only loss has been, I think, to Syracuse, and that was a tight game. I think they lost by a field goal earlier this month. Boise State, you can see it there. They lost to Oregon by a field goal. So, I mean, the teams that they've lost to are good teams, right? Syracuse, respectively, and then Oregon being the number 1 team in the country. So I think they both have great offenses, can score a lot of points, and I think it's going to be a high-scoring, fun matchup to watch. We've talked a little bit about Boise State's running back, Gentry. He's having a career year. People are talking about him going to the NFL. NFL guys are, standing like him in the backfield. He's getting a lot of attention nationally, and rightfully so, because he's just tearing it up on the ground. But I think it's going to be a high-scoring matchup, and I think it's going to come down to the wire.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been super high on Haj Malik Williams this whole show. I just looked it up. He is, in the short time he's been UNLV's starting quarterback, he is the team's leading rusher as well, with 390 yards and 4 touchdowns rushing. And by the way, he's 62 for 88 with 838 yards to start the year off in the couple of games he's played. So, look, great offensive play on both sides, but for me, it's tough to. I don't know if anyone made a pick on this game. I did not, but it's tough to look at the numbers and not lean Boise State here. They've got almost 530 yards of total offense a game. That's a tough. I don't want to look at that team and say, they're not going to win, right? Like it's just a tough game. Scenario.
It's a trap game.
What's the spread there?
3.5.
3.5. I took the over. That's the only one because I really was
over 64 is
I was really looking at that, and I think what stopped me was Boise State not being as dominant over Hawaii. That one really left a bad taste in my mouth, especially, which again, another story for a different day on how sports gambling is such a major component now in all sports and how it's heavily relied. The lines and numbers for the running back to go over 6 touchdowns that game was every other commercial and every other ad. And they were saying this was going to be a 100-point win against Hawaii. So I took the points, but I was very weary of that matchup as a whole.
Yeah, but at the same time, that game is an anomaly for them. If you look at all their games they've played, with the exception of Oregon, right, and they still put up over 30 points in that game. They had 45 against Washington State. They had 56 against Georgia Southern. They had 62 against Utah State. Now, granted, these aren't teams that are on the same caliber as UNLV, but this team at any moment can pop off and score a lot of points. So, we'll see. Like you said, Tondo, they probably should have put up way more against Hawaii. They only had 28, but I think they bounced back this week and against UNLV, and that it's a high-scoring game.
Absolutely. In terms of other teams that didn't make it on the graphic for the bubble, I've got a lot out of the American. Memphis, Tulane. In Conference USA, I have Liberty. Going into tonight, I had Liberty, but right now they are losing. They're 5-0. They're down at the start of the fourth quarter, 24-17 to 0-6 FBS newcomers, Kennesaw State. So that's a tough look. That could sink any playoff hopes that they have. But overall, I mean, I would also like to point out Tulane. Tulane's doing really good out of the American, kind of our favorite team to talk about 2 years ago. Haven't talked about them that much this year, but I think right now, if it's not Boise State or UNLV, it's going to be the champion of the American that gets that final college football playoff spot.
So Basil, we're just going to pretend I didn't have Liberty minus 25 versus Kennesaw State on the card today, right? We're just going to pretend that didn't happen.
We'll get into it. We'll do a.
I'm going to delete my analysis there. I forgot they were playing tonight. Wow, that's I'll take the L. Holy shit.
Yeah, we said a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about this Group 5 bubble, right, that Liberty probably had the easiest schedule out of all these Group 5 schools. And we were talking about, is it going to be enough, right? Even if they go undefeated, is their strength of schedule enough, right? So even weeks ago, we were talking, the expectation was for Liberty to win the majority, if not all of their games. So if they lose tonight, then, they're completely
it's out the window if you lose to Kennesaw State, who their most competitive loss was losing 14-5 last week. What a weird football score. 14-5 against Middle Tennessee State. That's a safety and a field goal. And they're going to beat Liberty, or at least they're, on the brink against Liberty. Like, wow, that's embarrassing. So I start off 0-1 of the week. There you go.
Hey, we've actually got a viewer comment. This is from, friend of the pod and friend from House of College Hoops and Everything College Basketball, Trevor Everett. He's asking, ECU bounce back week against Temple since they fired Houston. I don't know, Trevor. That's tough. So for those of you who don't know, after the loss to Army this past week, 45-28 at West Point, they did let go of their head coach, Mike Houston. John David Baker, the offensive coordinator, it looks like he'll be taking over the role. I can't tell for sure, but I don't know, man. The American's going to be tough, and I don't really see ECU making their way back out of it.
Am I not mistaken that East Carolina was a college game day site last year?
Could have
been. Was that? It was definitely was James Madison, but I feel like that
App State maybe,
and App State
App
too.
State definitely was, but let's see. Well,
the purple and gold just resonate with me, but I'm probably thinking James Madison.
Yeah, I think you might be confused.
I don't think it was a bad loss. Army's good.
No, I mean they're a ranked team. It's a ranked loss for a group of 5 school. But
no, I think their schedule, they haven't been having a great year, right? They lost to App State, they lost to Liberty, they lost to Charlotte big the week before Army. I think it's kind of crazy to fire their coach mid-season because what were the expectations for ECU going into the year? I don't know if they were that high, but obviously they're looking to make a change there.
JMU had game day.
It was James Madison. I just looked it up. They hosted it against App State, and that was a wild game for those that remember. It was back in November. I think James Madison was the unanimous favorite, and App State beat him in overtime 26-23. That was nuts. And guest picker, anyone want to guess who the guest picker was for JMU?
PFT.
That's right. It was PFT commenter. Wow. 26,000 fans went to the the college game day, not the game, the college game day set. That is a record.
Wow.
That's awesome.
The college game day at Gillette was sick.
Yeah,
It was for
Army
Army
Navy.
Navy.
Yeah.
And Belichick put on the Navy hat or the helmet or whatever he did. That was fun.
I would like to correct myself. The offensive coordinator did not take over as interim head coach. It is actually defensive coordinator Blake Harrell, who is the current interim head coach of the ECU Pirates.
I will say, though, yeah, that's a good tidbit, Trevor. I will say East Carolina is favored by 7 in this game because they're playing Temple, who is not – their strength of schedule is really bad. Well, maybe this is a bounce back for ECU. They lead in every category offensively. There's one that they trail, and that's just defensive passing yards allowed.
While we were, while Trevor is here, I would like to bring up our not quite sponsor, but something else that we're offering here at houseenterprise.com, our 2024-25 Everything College Basketball Magazine. Guys, we are less than 2 weeks away from the tip-off of the 2024-25 college basketball season. There are so many things to cover, and our team over at House of College Hoops and Everything College Basketball have covered everything. Previews for all 364 teams, rankings for the top 50 players in the country, preseason awards for every single conference, as well as just nationwide. There is so much here for you guys to check out and have you be prepared for what should be an amazing college basketball campaign. So if you're interested, make sure you head over to house-enterprise.com. There's a blog post up about it where you can head to the link to purchase your copy. And I edit a lot of this. Jake edited a lot of this. Will, you edited a lot of it, but we all put it all together. Really proud of this one, and I think you would be amiss if you did not head into the college basketball season with our fantastic analysis.
We got fans from Spain ordering these things. So
yeah, we got fans from Spain.
Yeah.
We've got coaches ordering it. We've got other reporters ordering it.
We missed the mark on Cole evangelizing in Morocco, though, so we'll take that note for next time.
You're getting into a new market.
It's a worldwide magazine, folks.
I don't know if Morocco allows college basketball, but
I'll tell you what, boy. When I was over there, I tried to find a place that I could watch college football games at. They don't exist.
That's just not going to happen.
That would have been.
You would have had to do that. There was a college basketball bar in Marrakesh.
Oh yeah, it would have been electric.
What do you think Morocco's team is? I feel like it might be UNLV.
It might be ECU. It might be ECU.
Yeah, maybe it is. Or for old time's sake, if you really want to piss Cole off, I heard Morocco is a big A&M school or big A&M country.
Don't get me started.
Oh my God. Well, let's get into our cards for this week. And
that's where Jimbo lives now, I heard.
Send his ass to Morocco. I love it. We love Morocco. It's fine.
Great country. Had a great time. Hospitality was great. I recommend it.
So getting into our cards, we are looking good this week, guys. This is going to be the first time in a long time, I think, that we are over 500. Or not all of us are – that all of us at the same time are over 500. This is really impressive from the crew. I think what this means is – starting next season, we need to step up the challenge a little bit, and maybe bring in some units. Make things a little bit more complicated so we can get get that next step in the edge of our college football analysis.
Look, I'll say this though, with the craziest season that we've had in a while, for us to all be above 500, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Especially after last week, it's tough.
And Tondo is crushing it in picks this year across college football and the NFL. So
I don't know how you do it.
Insider trading or something going on there.
The NFL, I thought I'd be better at college football than NFL because it's real, but NFL has just been favorites across the board. That 1 week, it was either last week or the week before that you went. I don't know if it was you or Gilly or somebody. 2 people went perfect, and
Cole, you went perfect, right?
everyone had over 9 right.
It's crazy.
So it's like, which is crazy. It literally was like
I should have put in a parlay that week. I'd be rich.
that's like the one week where it's like I was like, oh, this probably won't happen. It was like all the favorites hit, and it's like that's again, take the tinfoil hat on. I've been online for too long. That was the one where they got you. All the gambling companies in the NFL is like, yeah, we're gonna have all the favorites win. So then next week you're just hammering a favorites parlay, and here we are. But college football.
It was Gilligan and Zach. That's who it was.
I was going to say, I don't think I
contributed that to
you. I think you were like a 12-1 or 13-1 that week.
I'll take it. I'll take what I can get. Not many wins coming my way.
Yeah, especially as us sad fans, Patriots, Jets, and Giants, the loser pack.
Yeah.
But my picks, I feel good this week. The card is definitely interesting. Basil, if you want to swing over to that next slide. It's a lot of the spreads on some of these are crazy, like the Oklahoma -20, Oklahoma +20 versus Ole Miss and Illinois +21 versus Oregon. Those are two very good teams. And yes, I know the rank disadvantage on both sides, but 21-point spreads in week 9 of college football against those, I think that's too high. So I'm taking the covers there. On the flip side, I really did not understand how UCF's favored against a BYU. So I'm taking the points there. No, what do you got, Basil?
Well, they almost upset Iowa State last week.
Yeah, that's why when doing homework, I think that's why that happened.
They
lost
really
4
good.
in a row.
Yeah.
They're still like they're on an 0-4 of their last 4 weeks. Like this baffles me. And it's in Orlando. I understand it. Whatever.
To swing it all the way into them being the favorites, I don't really think is that fair.
Disagree with it.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite picks of the week is Pitt -5 for Syracuse. I think that's going to be a great matchup as well. Syracuse is becoming more of a football school as well. We're seeing a lot of good stuff, but got to ride with Pitt, especially with Gilly every week commenting. Pitt faithful now that they're ranked, so keep it going. We touched upon Boise State and UNLV. I was leaning back and forth on both teams. I'm just going to take the over. It's probably going to be like a 21-14 game now that I picked it. And then Penn State -6.5 versus Wisconsin. I'm still going to ride the Nittany Lions. I think they definitely have a lot to prove in the Big Ten as well, and showcasing that they deserve to be a top 4 team. So, I think they'll easily win by a touchdown. FCS, I'll take Dayton over Morehead State, and my lock, Miami -21. It's not against UCF, sorry. It's against Florida State. Typo there, but
so you are going with the 20 spread, just
only on that one. The other ones, because it's like, again, 2 other matchups up top where it's like those are very good teams. Florida State is trash.
They're 1-6, boys.
They're
so 1-6.
How did they fall off so far? I had them. I don't know about you guys. They started at 9 for me. I'm looking at my poll. They started at fucking 9. They were out the next week. But
Norvell might be out of a job. He might be going back. He might be going back to Memphis because Memphis has been having a great year. Their coach might get hired. He might be going back to Memphis.
Dude, he's going back to high school. What do you mean?
He's going to be coaching with Connor Stallions in Western Illinois.
It is
what's going to happen.
So
how did this happen, though? Did the media just grossly overestimate DJU, like, being good? Or
no, I think it's just general. Like, I think the preseason AP poll, for better or worse, I think there's a lot of general carryover from where things ended the last season. You know what I mean? I think Florida State, they lost to Georgia in that bowl game. It wasn't great, but at the same time, like, they finished it as a top 10 program. We thought they retooled well in the portal, thought they recruited well, and so that's kind
the
of
thing. Like, yeah, they had some turnover, but I don't think it was egregious. Like, they didn't replace 22 starters.
Well, I think the media felt like the turnover was handled well. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you're losing players. You lose Jordan Travis, but you take DJ Uiagalelei, and it's like we thought that he was going to be solid, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah,
So,
I just don't think it was. I don't think it was a good fit, and I think just the way they started the season, losing against Georgia Tech and Ireland, and then having that upset loss against Boston College on their home turf, I think they just
and then Memphis.
started to spiral. And
I mean, forget just Memphis after the list goes on, right? Like, who was even their one win against? It was against Cal, 14-9. That's embarrassing. Every major, like, I get it, Basil. I understand that, like, the AP. It's hit or miss, really. It's very similar in basketball. You have no idea really what you're going to get from a team. But for several outlets to go on record, like I'm reading from like SI, from all this stuff, people are talking about like Seminoles are going to go 11-1. Like they should be a favorite to win the ACC again. They should finish the regular season undefeated. All of this stuff, I have a hard time coming to terms with the fact that everyone was just so wrong. Every single person.
Yeah, I think it's bigger than that. I think that's why Norvell may actually be gone at the end of the year because I think it's bigger than that. I think there's issues in the locker room. I don't think this team meshes. I just think that there's a lot of internal issues that we don't see or necessarily hear about because there's no way this team should be 1-6 right now.
No.
1-7 after this.
I'm just curious what DJU's NIL deal is to get to Florida State.
Well, he's getting paid no matter what. He doesn't care because look,
exactly, which is definitely the problem. And I was looking on 3.com, and obviously you can't see like the full things, but you can see different stuff. Like he has Celsius, Beats by Dre, Circle K. Like I'm just curious what the school's paying him. But the fun tidbit I do want to share, but without derailing, did you know the U.S. Marines gave him an NIL deal last year?
Wow.
DJ?
He did an advertisement for the U.S. Marines saying, which side are you fighting for? I think that's fucking crazy that our federal government is tossing NIL deals. Isn't that what
that? And he's not even in the military. What the fuck?
That's the thing. Yeah. I just looked it up. Like it's like Gronk, like in the USAA commercials.
It is insane.
That is asinine.
I think Florida State's got to bring in Matt Sluka. Give that guy some money.
Oh my god!
Why not?
Why not?
Got the money after next year because this motherfucker's gone. DJ Hughes going to be unemployed next year.
Well, it's a good thing that he's making a lot of NIL money because he's going to be searching for a job.
I hope so. But thankfully he'll be all right for a few years. He can kind of hang out, find some brand deals, maybe be an influencer as a career. That's sure as shit is not in football. That's his future.
Maybe he'll become a Marine. Who knows?
Maybe he should. Maybe he should at this rate.
All right. We're getting into my card. I've got Boise State. We talked about it earlier. Boise State minus 3.5 versus UNLV. I think Boise State, UNLV, despite, overcoming the obstacles that they have done so far in the middle of the season, I still think Boise State's got it, so I'm taking them minus 3.5. Then I'm rolling with the Hoosiers. I am fully ready to declare that Indiana is a football school, so I've got them minus 6.5 versus Washington. I've got LSU plus 2.5 versus Texas A&M.
Love that pick.
I knew you would like that one, Cole. This one feels a little trap game, but I just think LSU is. The thing is, LSU, a big theme for a lot of my picks this week. I mean, I guess aside from like Boise State, I'm sorry, aside from like Indiana, because I don't think Indiana's great. They're going to play in a really fun bowl game. They're going to play in like a Pop-Tart Bowl and like have like a like a big meme win, and we're all going to love it. But they're not fighting for a playoff spot. But LSU is, right. Texas A&M is not. And I think LSU can come in here and I think Texas A&M is just getting the favorite here because they are the home team, and it could be close, but I like the Tigers here. Georgia Southern, again, weird spread. They're a 1.5 point dog against Old Dominion. I think Georgia Southern is a much better team, so I'm going with Georgia Southern plus 1.5. Tulane minus 8 versus North Texas. Look, another sneaky playoff team. If things go the right way for Tulane, I think they could fall into a playoff spot, which is how crazy I think this this group of 5 contest is right now. Colorado minus 5 versus Cincinnati if Colorado beat Kansas State 2 weeks ago, I was ready to rank them. I am ready to say that with my full chest. I know me and Jake were kind of arguing about it in the group chat earlier, but I really love them. My FCS pick, that is not correct. My FCS pick this week is – that's weird. That's it's not James Madison because James Madison is not an FCS school. My FCS pick this week is I got Yale over Penn. I want Yale to be a strong contender for the Ivy League this season, so I'm rocking with the Bulldogs here. My lock of the week is NIU -12 versus Ball State, and I'm going to hold you guys in suspense for my game of the week pick. Jake, what you got for us?
Okay, few eerily similar to Tondo here. This Miami -21. Yes, Miami's defense allowed 42 points against Louisville last week. I think that is because Louisville's a good team, and that's not because of anything Miami did. They played themselves into some odd situation here, but I think FSU sucks. Done. I don't need to reopen what I said. The BYU +2 thing, like here's the thing about UCF. I feel like their street cred came from non-power 4, right? Like they lost that 4 in a row. Yeah, they nearly upset Iowa State last week. They had quarterback issues. They've got a lot of stuff in the kitchen going on right now. You guys probably saw BYU almost got upset by Oklahoma State a couple of weeks ago. I think there's one major difference between UCF and Oklahoma State is that Oklahoma State is good against the pass, whereas UCF sucks against it. So, and BYU with this pass-first offense, their air raid, I just see not a lot of problems moving the football for BYU here. Penn State, same deal. I love Penn State this year, right? Like, and I think the interesting thing about this is Wisconsin has kicked the rear ends out of the last 3 opponents, right? They outscored them 117-16. But you look at Purdue, Rutgers, and Northwestern, who they beat, and they're a combined 8-13. Like, I don't think any of them are good football teams necessarily. It's not great competition. So I think Penn State is decidedly better than Wisconsin here. Penn State gets Nick Singleton back as their leading running back. They get one of their offensive linemen, Anthony Donko, back. And for me, Penn State, it comes down to they won games on the road. They've proven they can finish. They can score in the red zone, and they can move the football, right? That's a recipe for disaster here. I think this could get ugly. I have Kansas State -11 over Kansas. I think Kansas stinks on the road here, 0-3 the last 3 games. K-State has scored 31+ in 4 of their last 5 contests. Jayhawks allow a bunch of points. I think all signs point to a K-State cover, and I think the over at 55.5 is in play here as well, provided that Kansas can rip off a couple of touchdowns here. This Illinois +22 against Oregon, look, I think Oregon's going to win this game, right? The question that I keep getting hung up on is 3 touchdowns too much? And I tend to think so. I think Illinois has proven a lot. They're responsible with the football. They haven't shot themselves in the foot. Luke Altmaier, who came from Ole Miss, he had a fluke season last year. He threw 13 TDs and 10 interceptions last year with Illinois, and everybody's like, wow, this guy sucks. He's totally reversed that this year. He's the best touchdown to interception ratio in the country. He's 15-1 right now, right? So that proves to me, like, Illinois can keep this close. I wholeheartedly believe that this could come down to a touchdown or 2. I think even though this is in Eugene, +22 is in play. Absolutely. Pitt and Syracuse, I think I keep coming back to this Pitt rush game and their run defense, right? The run defense is among the top 20 in the country by all marks. They're 9th in college football at 3 yards per rush. They've got 4 guys having 3+ sacks on the year. This is a good front. I think for that purpose, they command a game against Syracuse. They go from there. And Liberty -25 against Kennesaw State. FML. That's what I have to say about that one. FML. And that's all.
Let's get a score check on that one real quick. 27-17 Kennesaw with 3:40 left in the
Don't do it to me. Don't do it to me. I can't.
Sorry, I had to.
Tough. My FCS will be UT Martin against Eastern Illinois. UTM's a good football team, fellas. They want to share the Big South OVC Association last year. Eastern Illinois was one of the worst. I think history repeats itself. UT Martin starts off 4-3. Eastern Illinois is 1-6. Patrick Smith has 10 rushing touchdowns for the Skyhawks this year. I think they handily take care of Eastern Illinois. And then we got the game. We have the game as the FBS lock of the week, and that's Michigan over Michigan State. I've been seeing a lot of Michigan hate here. I defended them at the beginning of the year. I don't love Michigan, especially after last year, but I stood up for them and said, this is the reigning national champion. Have some respect. Put them top 10, whatever I said. I think some of the hate is warranted, I will say. You've got to win that game against Illinois. You have to score more than 7 points. You've got to at least keep it more competitive than you did on the road against Washington. I think both of those are prerequisites for you to be taken seriously as Michigan this year. That being said, it's not over. All right, I think the redeeming this offense has some issues for sure. I think the redeeming quality is the rush, right? I feel like I'm saying that's about all the teams. But Kalel Mullings has been pretty solid this year. He's got 100 yards a game. He's got 7 touchdowns, which means he's putting the ball in the end zone once a game. He's picking up where Blake Corum left off, not quite to that clip, but there's some continuity in this run game, and I think that has to happen this week for Michigan, right? They've got to lean into this run success, especially since the offense and the special teams were very bad last week. I don't think they let this happen again. Michigan has not lost a home game at the Big House since they did for Texas, right? They have lost very rarely at the Big House over the last couple of years. I say tradition continues, and Michigan takes care of business against Michigan State. And that's the card.
I like it. One question I had about your card, because I know you're talking about Penn State versus Wisconsin. Do you feel like it's kind of like something like what I was talking about? Like we're in week 9 now, right? And I think, while there are still teams that are fighting for bowl eligibility, I think most programs know, are we fighting for bowl eligibility? Are we just trying to keep our head above water? Or are we fighting for a playoff spot, right? I think Penn State and Wisconsin is kind of a good example of that, right? So for Penn State, like this game, no matter what, it does kind of mean more because they're fighting for, the number 1 spot in the Big Ten at the moment. They're fighting for a top 4 spot in the college football playoff. Do you feel like that's kind of a motivating factor behind some of your picks here?
I would say so, right? Like Penn State, I think they're playing loose enough right now, right? Like they've had some pretty solid wins. Nothing jumps out as like, wow, holy crap, I can't believe they did that. But I mean, Illinois 21-7, USC 33-30. Those are solid wins. Those are like gritty wins. And like I said, kind of picking these games, it comes down to, can you win on the road for me and can you finish, right? Like, can you put the ball in the end zone? And I think we've seen from Penn State, I'm comfortable enough to know what Penn State is, I think, right? Like, I think they're a team that moves the ball very efficiently. They score a lot of points. They're 19th in the NCAA in total offensive yards. They pass really well. They rush above average. They are putting 35 points on the board a game. They're loose. They just got to let their offense flow. And, I think that's a significant advantage for them at this point is they're not – yes, they have stakes in this, right? They want that number 1 seed, right? But they don't have to pull off a miracle for that to happen. So they just stick to their brand. They're in a really good spot here.
Yeah. Cole, what you got for us?
All right. My card is very similar to both Zimmer's and Tondo's. I won't spend too much time going into it, but – talked a little bit about Tulane. They got North Texas this week. North Texas having a good year. Their quarterback, Chandler Morris, he's lighting it up. He's got over 2,400 passing yards. Great player. But I like Tulane for a couple of reasons. One, they have the most defensive touchdowns in all of FBS. So if there's any time to have a quarterback turn the ball over, it's this week. Morris, like I said, he's been playing great, but you got to make him turn the ball over to win the game. Their offenses look pretty good. I mean, they're averaging over 40 points per game. Darian Menser, their quarterback, he hasn't thrown a pick in the last 4 games, so they haven't been turning the ball over too much, which is great. They're 3-0 in conference play, and if you look at the standings right now, they're right behind Army and Navy in the American, right? And Navy has Notre Dame, obviously, this week, which is going to be a tough matchup for them. Army's on a bye. So if you're Tulane, you got to look at it like we got to take care of this conference opponent and keep working our way up the standings so that we can get a spot in that conference championship game. So against one of the academy schools potentially. So I think they're going to come out and win big against North Texas. So I'm going to take them -6.5. BYU, UCF. You guys have said it. I don't really get it. BYU, undefeated, great team. They've had some big wins this year against Kansas State, SMU, UCF on the 4-game losing streak. BYU's 4th in turnovers gained. Their defense is playing really well, so I'm taking the BYU Cougars there. Toledo and Bowling Green, a little MAC action, battle of the I-75. This should be a good matchup. Toledo's 3-0 at home. The last 2 of these games, these rivalry games, the last 2 seasons have been decided by a touchdown or less. So I think it's going to be a close game. The spread's 2.5. I like Toledo. The one thing that worries me about the Rockets in this game is they've let up 11 sacks, their O-line this year, and Bowling Green has 19 total sacks on defense. So they've got to protect their quarterback. They got to be able to run the ball. Bowling Green's defense, rushing defense, is terrible. I think they're 108th ranked out of all the teams in the FBS, so they're pretty low. They're averaging over like 4.5 yards per carry for the opposing team on the ground. So if you're Toledo, you got to be able to run the ball, move the rock, protect your quarterback. I think they do that at home, so I'm going to take them there. Pitt, Syracuse, this is going to be a really exciting game. We talked about the ACC, a lot of great teams between these two. You have SMU, you have Duke, you have obviously the ones at the top, Clemson and Miami. But the ACC is wide open, and I think this is a must-win for Pitt at home because, the rest of their schedule isn't easy. They still have SMU, they still have Clemson, they got Louisville, UVA, and Boston College. Right, those are not going to be easy games for them, so they got to get this one against Syracuse. They're 6-0 for the first time since 1982, so they got that going for them. And they're playing tomorrow night, Thursday night. Their last 5 games since 2019 on Thursday night, they're 5-0. So I'm going to take Pitt to avenge their loss against Syracuse last year and get the win this year, get the win tomorrow night. So I'm taking them money line. Lock of the week for FBS, Penn State, Wisconsin. Zimmer just talked about it. Look, I mean, Drew Aller is a system quarterback, but he doesn't turn the ball over. He moves it down the field efficiently. He's got over 70% completion rating this year. They got the 2 running backs, Nick Singleton coming back, like Zimmer mentioned, and then Katron Allen. Both those guys are averaging over 4.5 yards per carry. So you got to utilize both those guys. Penn State's coming off a bye week, and they have Ohio State next week. So I think the key for them here is you don't underestimate Wisconsin. Don't look past them. Don't be focusing on the Buckeyes just quite yet because you got to go to Madison, beat Wisconsin first. I think they do take care of business, and then they focus on finally getting over the hump against Ohio State and potentially being one of the top teams in the Big Ten. FCS lock, going to the Ivy League. Harvard against Princeton. Harvard 4-1, Princeton 2-3. Harvard's on a little bit of a winning streak, 3-game win streak. They beat Holy Cross by the smallest margin last week, 1 point. But they have some impressive wins this year against, Holy Cross, UNH. They did lose to Brown, but they're 3-0 at home, and they're playing in Cambridge this week. So I'm going to take the Crimson over Princeton, and that's my card.
Love it. And let's get into our game of the week, which is one that we kind of debated about all week, and I felt like we came to the decision because we just thought, when's the next time we're going to be able to say that this is the game of the week, which is Notre Dame versus Navy this Saturday. It's a noon game at MetLife Stadium. It's a really interesting matchup all time because, I feel like this matchup gets all of the pomp and circumstance that like a big rivalry game gets. Like they call it the Rip Miller Trophy, who was a player at Navy, who won he was a player at Notre Dame. He won the 1924 national championship with the Irish, then went on to coach at Navy, and then was a longtime assistant athletic director with the Midshipmen. It's one that gets playing time at NFL stadiums. 2 years ago, they played it in Ireland, of all places. But if you really look at the head-to-head all-time, Notre Dame leads this series 80, 13, and 1. In the past 50 years, Notre Dame has led this series 48-2. If you don't count those vacated wins, they've only won 46 of the last 50, and Navy's won 2. It's just kind of a route here. Obviously, they've won 40. They've won 46 outright. If you don't count the vacated wins, they've won 44 out of the last 50. Kind of tough. Navy's a near 2 touchdown. Notre Dame's a near 2 touchdown favorite here, but if Navy can do it any year, it feels like this year. So starting off with you, Will, how you feeling about the midshipmen in this matchup?
Have we had a Navy team this good in the past 40 years?
Nope.
I kind of like the chaos too of the end of the year. We said that what we need for a Army-Navy game to matter, 1, both Army and Navy to be undefeated heading to the Notre Dame matchup. 2, have them ranked. 3, the Notre Dame matchup. I'm rooting for chaos. Therefore, I am taking Navy plus 13.
Love it.
I would love to say the upset. I want the upset, but to keep the record in the green, I think they're going to cover the points.
And it's interesting because Army and Navy both have to do this. They both have to get big wins against Notre Dame. And Notre Dame, again, if you look at my playoff field, I have them as a potential playoff team. So this game has huge implications. When Navy goes to play, I think Navy could get a loss here and still be in the playoff field.
Yeah.
They can still win the American, but I mean it'll be tough. And then Notre Dame has to go play Army in Yankee Stadium, so that'll be really interesting as well. But let's stick to this game for now. Jake, how do you feel like this one's going to go?
Look, I'm going against every instinct I have because I've talked about how important the rush is for me this week, and Navy's the 7th best rushing team in the nation. They rush for 275 yards per game. That's insane. Just for me, I look at Notre Dame's defensive stats and think there's no way you're beating this if you're Navy, right? You're not beating a top 30 defense in most marks here. I don't know. This is coming down to Army Navy's brand has been just super low scoring defensive games. I keep associating that with Navy this year, even though they've certainly been scoring at a little bit of a higher clip. I just think this game has to be one in the trenches, and I think it just favors this Notre Dame roster this year. So that's why I've got Notre Dame minus 12 here. As much as I want the chaos to happen, I just don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love that the Naval Academy and West Point are having the years that they're having, right? Because the last couple of years, I feel like they haven't really been in the discussion at all. And then the Army-Navy game comes and, it's been kind of sloppy and, not so fun to watch. Well, they've totally flipped the script, right, this year. I think it's great for those schools. I think it's great for college football. And I'm really excited to see kind of how it winds up at the end of the year, whether they are at the American Conference Championship and then have to play each other the next week again in the rivalry game. I think we got some cool scenarios that could play out there. But, I'm just going to hop on what Jake said. I think the Notre Dame defense is just too good. I mean, Navy can run the ball, but I think Notre Dame is capable of stopping them. And the issue is if Notre Dame gets up on them, I don't know if Navy's going to be able to close that gap, right, after a certain while. So I don't know. I think another point is that Notre Dame, they already have that one bad loss to Northern Illinois at the beginning of the year. They have to win out pretty much. If they have another loss, I don't know, with all the other teams that are in contention for the playoffs, with 2 losses, they could be out of the conversation. So I think it's a must win for Notre Dame. And, since that loss against Northern Illinois, they've really stepped it up. They've looked good. It was almost like it was a rude awakening for that team. Rather than crumble, they kind of, just reset. And I think it was the best thing that could happen to them. And again, I love Notre Dame, so I'm not going against them. So I got to take the Fighting Irish -13. But again, hats off to both Army and Navy. They've been so exciting to watch. Love that they're undefeated. Can't wait to see how they continue throughout this year. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch them down the stretch. So
I need to pull the historical record of Cole betting against Notre Dame and what that record is.
It's probably not great. But
So I'm feeling more confident in my +13.
We do it anyways. Prepared to be disappointed.
Is it just fade Cole hour?
No, it never is. It's only against Notre Dame. It's Notre Dame. And then when you talk shit about Texas A&M, they do well.
I'll say,
Sure,
I know,
sure.
you're right. I'll say if Navy wins against Notre Dame, then hats off to them. Like, I'll be stoked for them. As much of a Notre Dame fan as I am, like, you got to root for both Army and Navy, what they stand for as universities, what the attendees of those universities do for our country. Hats off to them. So, I'm all for if Navy pulls this upset and just have them keep rolling, baby.
Why is this game why'd they choose MetLife? Any reason, or is just the rotating schedule?
Not sure. I think the Army Navy game this year too is at FedEx, I believe. They've been switching that up because it used to be like I feel like when we were growing up, they always played in Philly, right?
Yeah.
And the last couple of years, they obviously did Gillette last year. They're doing DC, I believe, this year, so they're switching it up, which is good.
I wonder where they are next year because the United States is 250.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Well, 2 years from now.
2025. Oh, 2 years.
2026 game will be in New York City.
Oh, let's go.
And 2027 is in Philadelphia. So it looks like they just have that rotation. Oh, actually, 2024 is in FedEx. 2025 is in Baltimore at the Ravens Stadium. 2026 back to MetLife. 2027 Philly. So they got that little rotation going on.
If they can ever play on an aircraft carrier, that'd be sick.
That would be very sick.
That would be sick.
Dude, that'd be like playing at like when they used to play the NFL games on like the AstroTurf that was like essentially concrete.
That's true.
Like,
I can't believe they did that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean those are our cards this week. This is going to be a really fun.
Hazel,
week.
what was your pick? Sorry.
Oh, my picks?
Yeah. No, you're.
For this game, I'm going Notre Dame -13. I think Notre Dame just needs it a lot more. It's going to be It's hard to say. I'm trying to think of like what the crowd vibe is going to be. I know Cole, you're going to be there, so we're going to need a full report from you next week.
I'm not going to be there because I thought when we were talking about it earlier in the week, I thought they were playing at Navy. So I'm like, oh, I'm in DC, Annapolis. I'll go to the game, and then I realized it's in.
Gotcha.
That's so cool.
I have a feeling that it's going to be a pretty heavy Notre Dame crowd. Just because I feel like Notre Dame does well in like the New York area. It's also just more of a national brand, especially I feel like Notre Dame does well on Long Island. But I just feel like they're more of a, they have a further reach in terms of athletics, but we'll see. I mean, I think if there's a time for Navy to pull it off, it's now. So that's it for our cards this week. Make sure you head over to house-enterprise.com/the-blog for more great college football analysis. Make sure you follow us on all of our social medias that I will pull up right here. Make sure you head over to the blog to make sure so you can see everything we're ramping up for the 2024-25 college basketball season. And, of course, we'll be here every week for the rest of the season for football to cover everything as we're 2 weeks away from the first official college football playoff bracket. The committee is going to release their first official rankings on November 5th. So we'll be there. We'll be here to break down everything compared to what we've got. And until then, for Will Tondo, Jake Zimmer, and Cole Hughes, I'm Sam Basil. This has been the Football House on House Enterprise, and we'll see you guys next time.